to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So most of you are now well aware we've had some breaking news in the Hunter Biden trial verdict. He has been found guilty of all charges, felonies, 3 felonies today in the Delaware gun crime trial. And, you know, we talk about drugs a lot on the show and how the addiction happens and why some people use them. It's not just to have fun. They're fighting pain. They're fighting illness. There's a whole variety of reasons once you dive into why a person uses drugs. But one reason why I never used drugs or didn't want to go down that path and recreationally party with people is I wanted to be able to own a firearm. I know that kind of sounds weird, but I didn't want to lose a job later in life. I wanted to know that my children would be healthy. I didn't want anything in my system when I was, if I later became pregnant. But a big reason that deterred me from using drugs was I want to be able to protect my family and own a firearm and not be in jail and not. And, when you see this case, people think it's all about Hunter Biden doing drugs and they're being revenged for what happened to Trump in the court system. That's not really what this trial is about. What this trial is about is his father, President Joe Biden, doubled down on restrictions of guns and protections in terms of who could own a firearm. And it's irony that his son is being convicted because he lied on forms saying he doesn't do drugs, he's not addicted to drugs, in order to get a firearm. Our ability to get a firearm is one of the biggest gifts and freedoms that this country offers. And I don't think enough people understand that. Mind you, I don't want guns in criminals' hands. I don't want guns in people who are unstable, severe mental illness, those who could hurt others. But I want to be able to protect myself and my family. I want others to be able to protect themselves. And we wield this liberty around like it's a straw wrapper, and we don't give it the care and attention it needs. Well, it looks like it did get some care and attention. So the Wilmington, Delaware jury unanimously voted to convict Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, of 2 counts of lying on a federal form to buy a gun and 1 count of possessing a firearm while abusing drugs. Now, this is the first time a current president's child has been found guilty of a felony. Judge Mary Ellen Noriega will decide on a sentence. Apparently, it could be as high as 25 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. Most likely, it's probably going to be much lower. Even though President Biden said he's not going to pardon his son, if his son is in jail and the president feels his son is rotting or getting worse or in harm's way, yes, of course he's going to pardon him. And I wouldn't blame him 100% because he's his father, and that's what a father would want to do to protect his son. But, if you're going to tighten up rules and ensure that individuals who are not going to be of sound mind or of their full mindset and under the influence of dangerous drugs to not be able to obtain a firearm, then you have to stand by the laws that you support. So being convicted on 3 firearms felonies, this dates back to October 2018 when Hunter Biden walked into a gun shop in Wilmington, Delaware, purchased a revolver. You had to fill out a standardized form, and he answered no as it pertained to the drugs. And then he wrote a memoir about his using drugs. Oh, well, that might not have been the most ideal. I heard some of the transcripts between his father and he, where Joe Biden was, saying he was there to help him. It's a sad case. People make fun of Hunter Biden. There's all these memes out there. Hunter Biden, even though he is the president's son and not a very popular president, be that may, Hunter Biden does represent a lot of individuals out there, which many people, you and I, deal with when there's a family member who unfortunately is under the influence. And the reason why the relapse is so common is the pain and the suffering trying to get off the drugs is so severe that the average person finds the easier way to cope to go back on the drugs. If you've ever tried to withdraw from narcotics, patients tell you they are in severe pain, severe diarrhea, they can't work. So they end up going back on the narcotics so they can still function. And so, our key to fighting drug addiction is coming up with painless ways to get people off the drug. The reason why Wegovy and Ozempic and Zepbound and Mounjaro is so popular for weight loss is for some, not everybody, but for some, it's a painless way to lose weight. Losing weight takes work. Blood, sweat, tears, cravings, mood swings. Losing weight is not easy. But some people have found using these drugs make it simple. And I'm worried about that because people are using these weight loss drugs as drugs. And then what happens when you start to rebound your weight? So I hope Hunter Biden has the help he needs. I hope, he is able to overcome any of his past issues. I think the jury got it right. And, interesting, too, because Wilmington, Delaware, it's a small town. So there's a chance that they know personally the Bidens or the Bidens know them. Not very easy convicting the president's son. But hopefully, things start to change in terms of the law not applying to everybody equally. 1-877-Daliah.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 855-SHARE-40. That's 855-SHARE-40. 855-SHARE-40.
Hey guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our Fantasy Football Pocket Guide for Beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network and for making the show happen, and big thanks to Daniel, our producer. So this headline caught my eye. Not surprising, but I think it needs some discussion. And the headline comes from Daily Mail saying gender dysphoria diagnoses among children have spiked 133% since 2019. Now, gender dysphoria as a diagnosis is one of the most severe, challenging, painful mental health diagnoses a child could endure. And they've gone up 133%. And analysts at LexisNexis tracked 300 million patients and found that insurance claims for gender identity care among kids, children, and teenagers spiked 133% from 2019 to 2023, which means more than doubled. Now, what the hell is going on here? Is this society contributing to people feeling like they're in the wrong body? Do we just have a very high number statistically of people thinking they're in the wrong body and feeling they're in the wrong body? And only now they feel comfortable to talk about it, so they're getting diagnosed? What is going on here? But as a physician, if you are giving somebody the diagnosis of gender dysphoria, it's pretty committing. It's pretty powerful. And you are saying that this person is conflicted, feeling they're in the wrong body, and not what they would consider, quote unquote, how other people feel normal. And that this person may never feel normal unless they go through an extremely rigorous process of a conversion that will never be 100%. That's a pretty painful diagnosis to give a child. A child. Are we overdoing it, people? Do these kids really have gender dysphoria? There is a small percentage of the population that do. It is not a fake diagnosis. I'm telling you right now, it's a real diagnosis. But is it that common? Are we misdiagnosing people and clumping it into a gender dysphoria when it should be a different diagnosis? But having a quote-unquote gender identity crisis puts that patient at high risk of suicide, requires suicide watch, requires families and support systems in schools to intervene and make sure there's no triggering and misgendering. It takes a lot of work for the lifetime of that person. Which means if you are a doctor and you're going to give that diagnosis, do you have the infrastructure in place? Or are you saying, you know what, Johnny, you got gender dysphoria. Come back in 2 weeks and let's talk about options. No, that's not how you give a diagnosis of gender dysphoria. If you're going to tell a child that they are feeling they're in the wrong body and the way biology or God or nature made them, they will never be who they want to be, you better have, all hands on deck for that child every minute of the day. Because that's a pretty severe diagnosis. And I think people are wielding the diagnosis willy-nilly because it's the in vogue thing to do. And to me, gender dysphoria, meaning you don't like your gender, it can be temporary. And more oftentimes will be temporary. We've seen studies showing kids outgrow it. But also kids change their identity. Kids are always evolving with their identity. Adults evolve with their identity too, but kids especially. So then if you are giving that diagnosis, or you're also explaining it might be temporary. You tell a kid something's permanent, they might be thinking about suicide. So what could some of these cases be? Well, if the true gender dysphoria case is you wake up and you say, I don't like my chest, I don't like my sexual organs, I don't like my hair, I don't like my facial features, I am in the wrong body. I'm supposed to be in his body or her body. This is not my body. It's very severe. All hands on deck. These people need help. But if they are diagnosing gender dysphoria as, don't be calling me a girl. I don't like dresses. I don't like pink. I like sports. And I've always hated my name. I don't want to be named Lulu. Please, let me change my name. Let me, wear pants. Well, that's not gender dysphoria. And I know this because I went through that. My name is Daliah. My mom wasn't a fan of Daliah. Why? Because she found out that my father chose the name because he had a crush on the actress Daliah Levy. Well, then my mom's like, there's too many syllables. I'm going to call her Dolly. And I went to 12 schools. They moved a lot. So every time I went to school, I was introduced as Dolly. And I hated the name Dolly. People would make fun of me, calling me Dolly Parton. And now if they did, I'd be like, oh, that is such an honor. Please, I would love to be that. But when you're little and you don't have boobies, it was used as a term to insult. And I was in the 5th grade and introduced to a class again because my parents moved, so I was a new student. And my teacher asked, what is your name? And I said, it's Daliah, but my mom wants me to be called Dolly. And the teacher goes, what do you want to be called? And I said, Daliah. And I remember hearing my mom hiss, right? But you know what? From then on out in class, I was Daliah. And that was kind of rough. Now, that has nothing to do with gender, but I know what it's like to be given a name that I don't like. That isn't my own. My name is Daliah. That's what it is on my birth certificate. Let me flip in and be called that. Now, that doesn't mean I need surgery. Daliah is a girl's name, and I'm a girl. But if a child wants to change their name, that doesn't necessarily mean they have gender dysphoria. Me, I did like skirts. I like dresses. But when I did sports, not very practical. Especially if I wanted to slide into home base. So yeah, I'll wear some pants. I don't like Barbies. I'd rather play with the Transformers in the 80s. I like the toys my brother played as opposed to the toys my sister played. Did that mean I have gender dysphoria? If society isn't going to now label girl toys and boy toys and girl clothes and boy clothes, there's no gender dysphoria. I've never had gender dysphoria. I am very glad I'm a biological female. I just didn't like the stereotypes of pink dresses and Barbies. And we've done a really good job getting away from those stereotypes. If I want to be a CEO, if I want to be a physician, I am so grateful that society now allows, all genders to be able to excel. But, I never had a problem necessarily with me being a woman. Did I want to pee standing up? Yes. Yes, I have always wanted to have the ability to pee standing up, especially when you're in Europe and there's only a hole in the ground to pee. It makes it easy, but I'm still glad I'm a girl. So when you have a child that goes, I think I have gender dysphoria, you need to really dig deep and go, what is it that you don't like about being a girl? Well, I don't like Barbies. A lot of people don't. What else? It's like society's being hypocritical. They've trained us to not like Barbies, and all of a sudden they shove this Barbie movie down our face, which, no offense to Margot Robbie, who was a fantastic actress, and Ryan Gosling, but the movie sucked. And so, if somebody's like, well, I don't like that, then I guess I'm not a girl. No, it is okay to be a girl and not like Barbie. I thought the Barbie dolls were fascinating, interesting toy. No offense to Mattel, but I didn't want to play with the Barbie. I wanted to play with my big wheel or something that went vroom. Doesn't mean I'm not a girl. And if a child says, well, I want to be a boy so I don't get picked on in the girls' bathroom or vice versa, then that's not gender dysphoria. That means that kid's getting bullied. And address that. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOCDALI. So yesterday we spoke about that study in the British Medical Journal Public Health that had found a startling number of excess deaths that could have been, needs to be investigated, could have been contributed to by the COVID vaccine. And they have asked for more studies to look into why more people died between 2020 and 2022 than would have been expected. Excess deaths mean, additional deaths not explained by the typical average numbers of cancer, heart disease, COVID, pneumonia, flu, etc. And they found, despite lockdowns, when the lockdowns ended, deaths went down, but still were in excess. And when they looked at the data, there was a very strong correlation that there weren't many other factors involved but the COVID vaccine. And so the study has brought on a lot of debate. And so when death rates are higher than historic trends, we need to look at, well, what was new? Was it COVID? Was it the COVID vaccine? Was it suicide? Was it overdose deaths? But the study looked at countries that had statistically significant excess deaths, which couldn't be explained by mere random variation. And they suggested that COVID vaccines could have played a role. Now, newspapers and media outlets have obviously jumped on this. I saw it when I was coming back into town. And now the media is trying to backtrack and say, no, it's not the COVID vaccine. It's not the COVID vaccine. Let's all take a deep breath here. And nobody's going to get in trouble for going against the narrative. Nobody's going to get canceled. But can we have an honest discussion about something medical and scientific? And I am watching the media fall all over each other, trying to say that it's a mistake to misinterpret the article, which, by the way, in and of itself, it said it was about the COVID vaccines. Now, we're not going to sugarcoat something. That's what the article said. You could believe it, you could not. But the article urged that we study this more, which is something I've been advocating for. Don't mandate things. Don't push things. Don't fire people. Let there be some honest discussions and studies and let the science evolve. But people are asking, what does this mean? This excess death. Now, we have documented cases of death after the COVID vaccine. According to the CDC, they're few and far between. This study is in a little bit of disagreement, saying, look, we have excess deaths that we can't explain. Now, could the excess deaths be more heart attacks than normal, more lung disease than normal, more suicide than normal, more cancer? And it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the COVID vaccine, but I think it is a very honest and justifiable, valid question to ask. Could there be a chance that those of us who got the vaccine have more vulnerabilities and have an easier chance to get cancer or heart disease or lung disease? Right now, the answer is we don't know. What we do know is COVID can increase your chance of death by inflaming the heart, worsening your lungs, worsening your brain fog, chronic cough, oxygen status. I wouldn't be surprised if the vaccines also can be found to play a role, but we have to study it. And so, according to the conversation, they said based on death certificates during 2020 and 2021, there were more deaths from COVID than estimated excess deaths in the UK. During the year 2021, when most vaccine doses were administered, there were actually fewer non-COVID deaths than would have been expected. It was 2022 that excess deaths exceeded COVID deaths. So that makes people start to think maybe there's an issue with the vaccine. Well, the problem we have is we might never know. When a family member says this vaccine caused a side effect in my child, the first thing I want to do is, mom is right until proven otherwise. Right? Mom is the mom. She saw a difference in the child, but what if the mom is incorrectly attributing the vaccine and the child had something else happen? Has that ever happened before? It has. Remember I told you there was a patient I had started on a diabetes medication, and I was in between patients, and my nurse said, Dr. Daliah, so-and-so called. He said the medicine you gave him caused him to have a bad side effect. So I said, okay, tell him to stop the medication and come in today. And then I said, whoa, wait a second. What side effect did he say it caused? He has a rash on his neck. And it's a painful rash. I go, whoa. Tell him not to stop his medicine. That might be shingles. Tell him to come in here, but don't stop the medicine. That might have nothing to do with his medication. And I was right. He just, luck of the draw, happened to get shingles. So we in medicine have to understand that some people might incorrectly attribute an issue as a side effect. And so our work is cut out for us when we do have somebody say, look, the medicine you gave us or the vaccine you gave us caused a side effect. So what do we do? How do we tell? Well, there is some objective data people could find. If somebody did have a cardiac anomaly or a cardiac issue after a vaccine and died, because you really wouldn't do this when they were alive, and you examine their heart and you see spike proteins and evidence of spike protein inflammation, and it looks like the genetically engineered spike proteins as opposed to naturally occurring COVID spike proteins, well, there you got some proof. But that's a pretty invasive way to look. If somebody has cardiomyopathy or a myocarditis or pericarditis, how do you know if it's COVID related or vaccine related? It's not that easy. So what we then look at is trends. Like with the Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca vaccine, are we seeing more blood clots? are we having an uptick in blood clots than we normally would in the regular population? And they noticed they did. And if they screened these people to see if they had a genetic tendency to blood clots or behaviors that caused blood clots, such as smoking, excessive sitting, hormone use, and they ruled all that out, and the only common denominator was the vaccine, then they could make an association saying, look, or a correlation where it might be vaccine related. So it's not impossible. You could do this. You could tell if there was an issue. The problem is when somebody would say, look, I think I had a side effect, and they would call telemedicine and say, oh, look, I believe you, but you need to go in and get seen in person. And they said, look, I told my doctor. They wouldn't have it. They wouldn't believe me. They wouldn't listen. That's a problem. Anybody who's a doctor that is a licensed physician has to listen. It can't be about the politics. And so, these quote unquote excess deaths, all right, we do have to take this study and you'll understand that there could be some misinterpretation. And let's say we did see more people die. Could it be that flu went away temporarily and then flu came back and it came back with a vengeance? No, could it be that people sat at home, ate like crap, so then they were at higher risk for heart disease? But we do need to study it, and we don't blow it off if it doesn't follow the narrative. That's what we do in science, people. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY.
Considered by most, optimized curcumin is one of the few bioavailable and highly absorbable curcumin products on the market. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch. Since most chronic diseases have inflammation, our optimized curcumin seems to be a perfect addition to any nutritional program. It makes sense to me that preventing or reducing inflammation is a key component to our overall health. The Mayo Clinic found that curcumin can decrease swelling and inflammation, has antioxidant properties, and research suggests that curcumin can prevent cancer, or at least slow the spread of cancer, and in many instances make chemotherapy more effective. It protects our healthy cells even from radiation. TotalWellness.com, where we help you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show, 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X or on Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and find us on YouTube, Dr. Daliah Show, and please click like and subscribe. So I have many times bought bottled water or had it served at a restaurant and it tasted like crap or it tasted like regular tap water. I've had some tap water and it tastes good. Don't judge me, but New York tap water tastes kind of good. Now, maybe it's because I'm really thirsty when I decide to drink from the tap, but I've had municipal water, and it's not that bad. But I have a tough time telling the difference But when you buy bottled water and you spend the money for bottled water, you think you're getting Icelandic ice cave fresh water. Apparently, a study is saying, nope, you're not. Where a lot of these bottled water brands is the same as tap water. So this is kind of, this is pretty fascinating. So, all right, so let me tell you what's going on here. The Environmental Working Group did this study, and they do a lot of really, really cool studies. And they tested 10 popular bottled water brands to assess their purity and safety. They said the results were alarming, and this is being reported by Viral Chatter, as each brand contained 8 different contaminants, ranging from caffeine to acetaminophen, which is Tylenol, to fertilizers, solvents, plastic-derived chemicals, and strontium. Now, I buy bottled water because I want pure. I don't want to have somebody's Prozac that they peed out into the toilet coming into my water. I don't want to pick up somebody else's hormones or whatever. And so I buy bottled water because I think it is coming from the fresh spring. For them to find that there's caffeine, acetaminophen, fertilizers, that means this is not coming from the purest spring that the company is touting. 2 brands, they say Walmart's Sam Choice and Giant Foods Acadia, stood out for particularly high levels of contamination. Sam's Choice was found to contain contaminants exceeding California's bottled water quality standards in some cases. Whoa. They say the most surprising revelation from the EWG study is that approximately 64% of the bottled water sold in the U.S. was actually sourced from municipal tap water. That means many consumers are paying a premium for something that they could be getting out of their kitchen faucet. Now, what about Dasani, Aquafina, Nestle Pure Life? According to this study, these are among those that source their water from public water supplies. They said the water undergoes little, according to this study, to no additional treatment or filtration before being packaged and sold to consumers. So how did they come up with this? What did the Environmental Working Group do? Well, they used 3 criteria. So the water source disclosure. Does the brand disclose the geographic location of the water source on the label, such as Iceland, which has some of the purest water, or the Rocky Mountains? All right. Where exactly did the water come from? Now, if they say water has origins from the Rocky Mountains, well, Las Vegas, Nevada water may have origins from the Colorado. Okay, be a little bit more specific, because now the purification methods. Does the brand provide information on the label about how the water was treated and purified? And then in terms of water quality testing, does the brand publicly release the results of water quality tests showing what contaminants were found? Now, the EWG found that most brands failed to provide this essential information to consumers. In 2011, only 3 brands earned top marks for transparency: Gerber Pure Purified Water, Nestle Pure Life Purified Water, and Penta Ultra Purified Water. So they are saying if you're going to buy the water, make sure that the water sources are transparent. See if you could look up contaminants, etc. And, maybe rethink what you're spending money on. Bottled water companies should be testing for unregulated chemicals. And another thing, too, that I have always talked about is these bottles. I mean, they're in plastics. And so I don't know what brand this is. Okay. The plastic could be leaching chemicals into your water. When I smell this, smells the same as I would as tap water. And so now some people say, well, Dr. Daliah, tap water is healthier because it has fluoride and things like that. I'm a little worried about tap water because I got a kidney stone, and I think there's a lot of sediment and things on the pipes that could sadly get into your body. And, that's why I drink, bottled water, because I want as little minerals and stuff in that could collect in my kidneys and cause stones. But I do not want to be spending the money I'm spending on bottled water if all I'm drinking is tap. And the reason why I'm avoiding tap water is I don't want the chemicals from people's medicines. When you pee out your narcotic or your birth control or your Viagra or your Prozac, it's in the water supply. And if our municipalities don't know how to leach that out, it's getting into your water. So the fact that this study found Tylenol chemicals in the water means something's going on. I know somebody can say, well, Dr. Daliah, maybe somebody emptied out their bottle of acetaminophen in the Rocky Mountain Springs. Could have. But this study could be replicated. We could test more. And if we're finding that there are average contaminants in these that equals tap, that's a problem. So is bottled water subject to stricter regulations than tap? I don't know, because our tap water has to be safe and it's regulated by the EPA. And so if bottled water has to be at least as good as tap. So from a financial standpoint, the company could be like, look, then why don't we just use tap? Now, flavor is important. I think some water tastes like crap. In fact, I was in Europe. You had to buy water. They don't give you water at a restaurant. And the water it just tasted like tap to me. It really was not good tasting water. And not all of the brands. You could buy a very expensive brand like Voss, but I'm not going to spend that kind of money on water. I like Smart Water. Smart Water tastes really yummy, those bottles of Smart Water. And I do like the taste of Boss. I also like, not Aquafina, I do like Dasani. I do notice there's a different taste, but are they adding that? And I'm not trying to accuse any of these bottled water companies for doing this. This is the Environmental Working Group that says this is happening. But maybe, test yourself. Remember we had that Pepsi challenge in the 80s where you had to close your eyes and test Coca-Cola versus Pepsi and say which one you liked? And I always picked Coke. I wanted to pick Pepsi. Every single time I did that test, I ended up choosing the Coca-Cola. Maybe try that with your bottled water. Have your family members do that. And if they end up actually preferring the taste of the tap, maybe you guys could save the money. But I am very frustrated with the fact that we are spending a lot of money and we could be given, a scam sort of thing. And I just want it safe. I don't care if it tastes like tap water. I just want to know that if I'm buying something like this, it doesn't have Prozac, it doesn't have Tylenol, it doesn't have urine remnants, it doesn't have dirty pipes, rat sewage, that I am getting the purest water to put into my body. And I'm telling you right now, it's not pure because the plastic leaches. The plastic from the bottle leaches. So it might be time for us to rethink water. Now, some of you will say, Daliah, just do Brita. Take your tap water and do a Brita filter. The only problem I have with that is every time my husband got a Brita filter, I would see little black specks in my water. And so I don't want the carbon or whatever's from the filter. And maybe we bought bad filters, but over the years, I always see black specks in my water. So I'm not a big fan of that. Maybe it's better now. But it's an interesting study nonetheless. So do a taste test and see if you can tell the difference. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.